Well, hello everyone. Welcome. I'm Dr. Ellis, and I'm super excited to be with you to talk about how we set goals for the year ahead. Of course, if you're watching this, then Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025. And I'm super excited to be with you to talk about specifically how to surrender your year, what it looks like to cast vision and set real actionable goals, right? We often start the year off with resolutions, and I was in a group coaching calls, and one of the reasons that this opportunity was kind of dropped on my heart. I was on a group coaching call and facilitating that call literally on the first day of the year. And one of the attendees said, Dr. Ellis, I have no clue who I want to be in this new year. I don't know where to start. I don't know what I need to be doing. I think I have goals, but I'm not quite sure how to set them. I don't know what I should be aiming for in this particular season of my life. And honestly, I've been hearing that a lot, but I hadn't heard it quite articulated like that. And so I thought, you know what? I have some frameworks and I have some things that have worked with my executive coaching clients. So let's talk that through. And just some bite size. I got three quick points for you, and feel free to jot some of this down if you want to. You can always come back to the video, but I will ask you to think about how to make this real practical because, of course, this is practical concepts that I want to share with you. When you typically hear, talking about goal setting, the idea of goal setting, we generally think of a list when it's personal, and then it's professional. We think about frameworks and SMART goals and things of that nature. But I want to unpack this concept in a more bite-sized way. One that is probably could be considered oversimplified, right? I want you to think about the idea or ask yourself the question, are you shaping your goals or are your goals shaping you? I'll repeat that. Are you shaping your goals or are your goals shaping you? That is the foundation of what I will share with you in this quick talk, in this quick session. I want us to talk about how to align your vision, set actionable goals, and ultimately create some lasting success. Generally, when we think about goal setting, we're talking about shaping the goal. But what I'd like to center is what it means for the goal to shape you. So I'm going to guide you through a practical framework of crafting this powerful vision and setting goals that truly align with your values and aspirations. As we go into this year, 2025, we've seen a lot in the past couple of years, particularly with COVID and all the things that came out of that experience. And I want to center the idea of surrender because we often think that goal setting is about doing more. But ultimately, it's about surrendering to what truly matters. So let's talk about what it means to casting vision, like you would cast a net, right? Like you put your net out or you cast a reel out to catch a fish, whatever for idea or imagery you want to use. But when we talk about casting vision, we're talking about seeing, right? Casting the idea of what we want to see, right? What is the bigger picture for this life that I'm living? What would it require for me to step back and see something that is beyond me or something that lives beyond me from a legacy standpoint? So surrendering your gear starts with truly stepping back and asking, what is the bigger picture for my life? True vision comes when you release the pressure to achieve everything and focus on what's most meaningful. I'll say that again. True vision comes when you release the pressure of trying to achieve everything and check everything off of your list and focus on what truly matters most. I believe in the work that I've done in the past couple of years, especially during COVID. I've noticed that, particularly with clients, that coaching clients, that the success for them often starts with setting a clear vision. So before we set goals, we need to take time to really clarify our values and determine what success really looks like. It often sometimes means letting go, surrendering what we thought things would look like in our lives. It oftentimes requires surrendering the methods that we've used in the past years to achieve what we've achieved. It oftentimes looks like letting go of certain habits and ideas around what things should be as well. And so I want to challenge you to surrender the perception of what you believed life would be, what you believe life could be, the absolute framework of how to get something done, right? I want you to let that go and surrender that, right? I also mentioned earlier about taking time to clarify your values and determining what success looks like for you. Because while values are really core, sometimes we place more value on certain things as life goes on, as time goes on, as we age, as life changes for us, family framework, life, money, career, things of that health. So sometimes what we value is still there. We just may decrease or increase the attention and the effort we give to those particular values. So as you think about surrender, and I know for busy professionals, productive professionals, the idea of surrendering doesn't really sound comfortable, but this is the concept I want you to start with. Completely starting with a clean slate, letting go of the ideas of what you think you have to do in order to get X result or X outcome. All right. That is the first step I want you to do. Now, I want you to complete. That's going to take some time because it's going to take some unpacking. But as you reflect on your values and really think about what truly fulfills you, you can write this down if you want. You can vision board. You can maybe do some voice notes in your phone. Voice notes will work very well for me and some other clients that I've worked with. I have noticed for myself that surrendering the if this then that type equation for my life has helped me tremendously. It is letting go of certain levels of expectations that we have long held, and it is surrendering that fully in order to get a sense of what long-term outcomes are really truly important to you and valuable to you. One of the things that I've noticed in surrendering the concept of life and goals is oftentimes, often, in interviews, they ask you, what do you want life to look like, or what do you want to do with your career in 3 to 5 years? Scratch that. I want you to envision the next 20 years. If you can, and I know I can, I'm thinking about the next 40 years. Some folks will say 20 years is too much. Dr. Ariel, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. I get it. But I want you to envision you in 20 years. What do you want your personal and professional life to look like in 20 years? Because think about the age that you are right now. Just think about your age right now. And imagine or consider if who you are now is who you thought you would be 20 years ago. Now, for me, I can honestly answer that question and say 85% yes. There's still some things that have not yet been accomplished that I thought I would accomplish by now. But for the most part, who I thought I was in my early 20s is exactly who I am now in my 40s. So I want you to think about, and I mentioned this the other day with someone who's early 60s. And it was a real conversation. It was a real action. So if you haven't done that, I want you to scratch the 3 to 5 years. We're not goal setting against the 20 years. We're just casting vision over 20 years. All right. Let me say that again. We're not goal setting over 20 years. We're casting vision over 20 years. I want you to envision yourself in 20 years. Answer the question, what do I want my personal and my professional life to look like in 20 years? That's the first step in surrendering, right? And kind of moving away from the ideas of exactly what a goal, a resolution, outcomes for life and career should look like. surrendering those concepts, envisioning what your values truly are at this stage of your life. What does it take for you to shed those thoughts and really think about how to visualize yourself in 20 years? First step. Second step. This one is so critical, particularly for productive professionals. I've decided not to say the word busy professionals. I'm going to say the word productive. Surrender can be a very emotional or overly vulnerable word for some. So I want to reiterate that surrender is not about giving up. It is about letting go the need to constantly do. It is about letting go the need to constantly have things checked off your list. Instead, I believe the concept of surrender is about focusing on who you want to become. And so as you think about that, we get a chance to reframe the idea that goals are just simply a roadmap to achieving the vision that we talked about earlier. Yes, they should be specific and measurable and actionable and time bound and all that, right? Yes. But I also want you to consider the idea that spending time being is more important than spending time doing. So for example, in shifting from doing to being, less about what I do and more about who I be. Less about what I do, more about who I be or who I'm becoming. Instead of saying, I need to accomplish XYZ, ask yourself, what kind of person do I need to be to live out my vision? Going back to those 20 years. What kind of person do I need to be or become to live out that vision? I'll say it again. Scratching the idea of I need to accomplish XYZ and list of things and asking, what kind of person do I need to become to live out my 20-year vision? Okay. So choose as you think about the person that you envision yourself in 20 years to become or to develop into, choose the characteristics of this individual. This is how we shift from doing to being. Less about being a human, less about a human doing, which a lot of us, fold into that, and more about being a human being. I want you to choose some characteristics that align with who you think this person is in 20 years. And not that you're arriving at the outcome in 20 years, but this is a 20-year journey for you to build up to the process, the journey of becoming. All right. The journey of slowly surrendering so that you can shift from doing to being. Whether it's patience or discipline or creativity or a greater discernment, or even someone who is wealthier financially, someone who's healthier physically, someone who has more time, freedom. I want you to think about those things and center that instead of a goal or a task, rather. I want you to center characteristics of who you want to become and determine what it will take to commit to embodying those characteristics in your daily actions. I am in the midst of a transition, and the transition is very much this whole process where I am identifying this is who I want to be. This is who I am. This is who I'm being. But I want to be more of this. I want to become more of this kind of person. In 20 years, this is what I envision my life to look like. And therefore, I need to shift less of the doing, more of the being, and let the being dictate my daily actions. So many times, our daily actions dictate how we show up in the world versus how we show up in the world should dictate our daily actions. So, the second step is just exactly that. Now, when you face obstacles, you're going to face some obstacles in shifting from doing to being. It's only natural. I want you to ask the question, what is this teaching me? What is this moment? What are these experiences? What is this obstacle? Um, what is this disappointment? What is this teaching me? And as you reflect, because reflection is critical in the process of surrendering what you thought life could and should look like, or surrendering how you thought things get done and how you thought outcomes were produced. I want you to adjust as you're asking yourself, okay, obstacle, disappointment, frustration, moment of a disappointment, whatever it is. What is this teaching me? And as you reflect, I want you to adjust your approach, right, to whatever the answer is that you discover, and keep moving forward with a real growth mindset. Realize that again, this is not about arrival. This is about a growth mindset that ultimately puts you on a journey of discovery. Now, as you're going through the shift from doing to being, this is where we start to really put real goal frameworks in place. All right. This is what you've been waiting on. But I'm not going to skip the most important stuff, right? The first two steps are critically important. But after you have realized, I'm going to surrender what I thought it should look like. I'm going to surrender what I thought I should have done in order to make my dreams come true. I'm going to surrender what I've always been taught life should look like and feel like, and how you get work done and how you gain success. Once you do that and cast vision for who you want to be in 20 years, you will slowly start to peel back the layers and come into a space of being instead of doing. In that space of being instead of doing, you will start to see yourself become who you are intending to be. Your attitude will shift. Your characteristics will start to get stronger in those areas, whatever they may be. Then you have an opportunity to look at some real goals and make them achievable. Surrendering is about, as I said earlier, kind of letting go, but it's also about trusting the process. So I want you to break your vision into quarterly markers. And let me tell you why I know this works. I've done it with my clients, but I've also done it with myself. Each year, since maybe 2008, 2007, I have made a goal list. I make a goal list and I write it down. I used to, write out a goal list for the year, and then I would make some additional lists that kind of carried out the rest of those goals for an additional 3 to 5 years. So I could again cast vision. But as life lifed, I noticed that now I will say that each year I was knocking the goals out. I was winning. I would look at my goals mid-year and I could just check things off the list. I would look at my goals at the end of the year and say, wow, this is working for me. But what I didn't realize was that a lot of the reason why I was working is because I wasn't just doing, I was being the person that I needed to be. However, as time went on, I noticed that making just a plain old list of goals, I wasn't achieving much anymore. That framework no longer worked for my life. So I realized that at the end of the year, I was still using that same framework, that same process, and I would get to the end of the year and like only accomplish two or three things out of 20. Then I realized, wait a minute. I need to, as I would with a client, like a corporate client, as I would working on a strategic plan or something of that nature, I need to put my goals into quarters. I need to break them up into bite sizes. I need to put them into specific categories: personal, professional, spiritual, physical, right? Financial. I need to put goals into categories. And then from putting them into categories, I can put them into quarters. And what I thought was really unique about that was when I break these goals, and that's why I started to work with my clients, is breaking these goals into quarterly actions make them feel more manageable and more meaningful, not just more manageable. They felt more meaningful. because I was going through the process of letting it go, surrendering how I thought it should look, surrendering how I've been told and taught that goals are accomplished and declared, and then shifting from doing it all to being the person that I'm envisioning. Those goals, those quarterly actions, not only became manageable because I broke them into the 4 quarters, they also became more meaningful. They became more heartfelt. They became more personal to me because with that, I'm surrendering and I'm trusting the process. So I ask that you set aside time, monthly and or quarterly, of course, and then just kind of right now even. That's why this talk or this session is so critical. Right now, what do your Q1 goals look like? Not even just for work, but for your life. Okay? What do those goals look like for you? As you review those goals, it is important as you check the list. You may not even have a list that you need to check. You may just cast them, embody them, and go on with the being. And then you naturally see them happen. Some of you will have to write them down and check them regularly. But it is important to review those goals, celebrate your wins, and then make adjustments along the way because that will renew your commitment to the bigger picture. So I'll give you an additional kind of some sub points for this framework. Again, putting them, that's the trick, y'all. Putting them into surrendering, changing your mindset about what you think it should have looked like by now or what you thought the process should have been to get success. As you surrender that, then you shift into being and doing. You've identified the vision of who you want to be in 20 years. Of course, that can change, evolve. But casting that vision out and then saying, instead of asking the question, what do I need to do in order to get there? No, no, no. Who do I need to be to get there? Because your be will determine your do. All right. After you've done that, identifying who you want to be, putting your goals. Who is the person that I want to be? Okay, what does it take to be that person? And you may feel like I don't really have that question, Dr. Ariel, because if I had that question, I would have already been the person. Well, no, not necessarily. You now got to do the work of being the person. So now you put your goals into quarterly actions, bite sizes that you can check off every quarter, right? But if you want an even more detailed framework, I'll give you this kind of Q1 through 4 framework. I like the idea of trying this option. You can, in Q1, which is now, you surrender to a foundation, looking at your habits and your routines that align with the 20-year vision that you have. So I am in the process of looking at my habits and routines and saying, okay, this can go with me in 2025. This needs to stay in 2024. Because here's the thing. This can go with me in 2025. This needs to stay in 2024. Because here's the thing about that. I discovered over the past couple of years, and even in working with coaching clients, I discovered that um, the version of who I have been cannot go with me to the next level. That there has to be a new version of me to go to this next level. And there's nothing wrong with the past you or the old me or whatever. Not necessarily anything wrong with that unless you truly have identified, some of your hangups and challenges and flaws that have really held you back. We all have them. But sometimes it's not that the older version of you or the past version of you was horrible or bad or unproductive. Sometimes you have to evolve ultimately to go where you're going. And so those habits and routines that you thought worked for you then, maybe they didn't even work for you then. They're not going to work for where you're going. And you think that they were good habits. You think that they were productive routines. What if they've expired and they can't go with you to this next season of your life? Right? So, as I go deeper into this other option of a framework, First option, just put your goals into go through the surrender, go through the doing versus being, or doing from being. And then as you cast that vision and you start to become that person, identify what goals go into quarters, right? And just break them up into real chunks. However, going deeper means taking Q1 to surrender to your foundation, looking at your foundation, reassessing your foundation, identifying if any habits or routines that you have had in the past no longer work for you in the future, no longer work for who that person should look like in the next 20 years. Q1. Q2, surrender to growth. As you have surrendered to the foundation, you're retooling your habits and routines. You're taking those months to reflect and looking at habits and routines that align with where you're going. Now, as you go into Q2, you surrender to the growth. You track the progress. You realize, okay, what if I've identified the habits and the routines that align with my vision, how do I then put them into place? Okay. How do I put them into place? Q1, January through April, foundational. Foundational. What is in your core? Habits and routines that need to align with that vision you casted of who you are in 20 years. Next, Q2, looking at growth, looking at the things that you now need to put in place and track your progress and adjust as needed. Tracking progress on your eating, tracking progress on your spending, tracking progress on the time that you're spending with your loved ones. If that's something that you centered as one of your foundational values, in going from doing to being, and then you adjust as needed. The next thing that you do in Q3, the next surrendering, is surrender to the refinement. I want you in Q3 to focus on what's working. Let go of what isn't. I did a leadership talk here on my channel about failure. And I went in a little. I got so excited about. I love this. I love doing this kind of work. It just really embodies who I am. But I talked a lot about having a fault and how we all have faults, but that fault doesn't necessarily mean that we're a failure. And so in Q3, I want you, as you've gone throughout your year, now you're mid-year, it's August, it's July, August, right? And you're thinking about, okay, let me see what progress I've made and make adjustments. And now I can focus on what's working and what isn't. And let me tell you, if it ain't working, you don't need to do it. You can tweak it. If you discover it's not really working, you need to move it around. You need to retool it. And sometimes it's not always something is not working. Um, Sometimes it's a matter of going back to those values and identifying your why. Why am I doing this? Um, am I really clear on my why? It's important. So Q3, focus on refining, fine tuning, right? Fine tuning what is actually working for you. And then just kind of letting go of what isn't. And lastly, in this more sophisticated, more detailed, more personal framework, other than just doing your quarterly goals, the final one for this framework is surrendering to reflection. Now you're looking at September-ish through December, right? October through December. Celebrating your wins and preparing for what's next. Now, some people will say, hey, I gotta get it. It's almost the end of the year. It's October. I haven't really done all the things I wanted to do. Hmm. It's November and it's December. I still got time. You do. However, that mindset, if you follow this framework, that mindset should not pop up for you in quarter 4 because you started your year in surrender. You started your year focused on being versus doing. And you started your year by making your goals real, achievable, breaking them into quarterly markers versus I spent this whole year and by October, November, December, I didn't even get 10% of what I wanted to get done. That's why we're scratching the goal list framework, right? And putting them into categories. So by the time in using this framework, by the time you get to Q4, you'll have some wins to celebrate. And you can, again, whatever you haven't accomplished by December, I I encourage you not to rush against the clock. I encourage you to put it off to next year. In fact, some folks are not going to like that, I know. In fact, Q1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you accomplish in Q1, win. Kudos to you. Check it off the list. Whatever doesn't happen in Q1, move it over to Q2. Whatever doesn't happen in Q2, move it over to Q3. And by the time you get to Q4, if that thing is still very real and important and necessary for your 20-year person, the vision that you have of your 20-year person, then you need to put it on your list for the next year. All right. So that's all I have. I just want to give this to you. I had a really unique series of conversations and calls a few days ago and thought I would share this framework with you. And because, of course, you know, things can get challenging in life. Work and the possibility of success and taking care of yourself, your health, your family, all this stuff, it gets challenging. And so surrendering your year does not mean that you're giving up. It means that you're trusting yourself. You are trusting your vision and being able to cast it. If you cast it, that means you can trust it too. And you're also trusting the process. And so when you surrender, we have to remember this. When we surrender expectations, perceptions, all these things that we thought we were supposed to accomplish, we were supposed to look like, this is how it works, it has to go this way. When we surrender those concepts, we give ourselves space for clarity. We give ourselves space for purpose. We give ourselves space for growth. So, if this resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more practical strategies. And I'm likely to do a quarterly goal check in with you on if you truly are surrendering your year, if you need help with that. So, please like, share, and subscribe. And also, if you need additional help with your professional or personal goals, you can always reach out to me at arielellis.com and book a call. Now, if you are seeing this in the early January, I am pending to go on a brief sabbatical, a very well-earned sabbatical. But I think it is important to let go of the noise and surrender your year to what truly matters. And that is what I am doing. So you can subscribe to the channel. You can also go to my website and you can actually subscribe to my newsletter and drop in your email address. And you can also book a call if you want to get deeper into your goals and your vision. I'm looking forward to hearing from you and knowing how you are surrendering your year and casting vision to ultimately achieve real actionable goals. All right, see you soon. Bye bye.